Hello! In this guide I will show how to go through the first 5 acts on a caster while doing all the skill point quests and the normal lab. I will do it through an in-depth commentary over a pre-recorded run I've done in 3.17. It's a fresh run, migrate all, done on a Templar Guardian, in which I kill Kitava at 1 hour 24 minutes with no deaths. The build initially uses Orb of Storms, Frostbomb and Stormblast 9 and transitions into a full-on fire build at 28 when I swap into Armageddon Brand and Cremation. Similar runs were previously done on a Witch, but now Templar is simply better. I picked this run specifically because I got a little unlucky in it, and I want to show what you can do when you get bad RNG and how powerful the build is, even when it's missing a couple of core components. This guide should be useful to any speedrunners, aspiring speedrunners, or anyone looking to step up their caster leveling or make their league start more zoomy. I have prepared a written guide for this racing build, which I will link below. Looks like this. So there is a comprehensive guide that I've prepared that's quite long, and I've also prepared a much shorter, brief guide which can be used as a cheat sheet during your run, for example, on a second monitor. There's also the passive tree, both in POB and pasted right here. Okay. If you have any questions or anything from the guide is unclear, feel free to leave a comment and I will do my best to answer. This is my first guide, so if you have any feedback or suggestions, let me know as well. Alright, so let's get started. So this starts with a migrate all.
To serve God.
Templar doesn't require any muling. Just preparing a couple of things before the run actually starts. What you see here, it's something I am going to copy and paste into the NPC search box. So this is a regex. The way this works is it lets me highlight specific items in NPC's shop. So for example, this will highlight all blue-green items, all blue-red-green, all items with movement speed, so boots, movement speed boots, and all scepters. So I recommend using a regex like this for racing. I will the regex is available in the written guide that I've got. Okay, let's go. The program you see on the screen is called LiveSplit, so that's one of the most common programs that speedrunners or racers use. Another alternative to this would be WSplit. WSplit is probably easier to use, but LiveSplit has some more advanced options, like splitting when you enter a specific zone or reach a certain level. You might notice that I've got move only on a bunch of different keys. This isn't necessarily because I need that, it's just that when I equip new gems I want them to fall on specific keys. In the Hillock fight, do your best not to freeze him when he's transitioning from the first phase to the second one, because that just wastes a bit of time. I try to dodge all of his attacks. The fact that I'm freezing him with this ability just makes the fight smoother and easier.
My God has no need for my company.
It's usually worth picking up all the items from Hillock. I identified the boots just to see if it's movement speed. I didn't get particularly lucky in this case, but that's fine. So here I picked up Rolling Magma, and my highest priority right now is to find blue on basically any piece that the NPC is selling, as long as it's not like a bow or a shield. So I
farewell.
I actually don't need it in Durson because I already have helmet with blue, but I was also looking
My
at
nightmares.
different colors and perhaps movement speed. So blue is necessary because it makes mudfloods much easier, much quicker. So if you link magma orb, or sorry, rolling magma now, if you link rolling magma to elemental proliferation, you have a chance of igniting monsters, and when a pack of Roas is ignited, essentially the whole pack dies after a single cast of rolling magma, making mudfloods faster and easier. So it's very important to get blue before you go to the coast. If there's a lot of monsters chasing you, it's totally worth casting rolling magma once or twice just to clear that pack. It's quite an efficient experience. So mudfloods, one of the most difficult zones in the game right now, after the Roas have been buffed. So the most important thing is not to get surrounded. Don't let the Roas stun you. They can chain stun you, and that can very easily lead to your death. I find the best way is to try to limit the number of Roas around you at all times. Just clearing packs of 2 or 3 Roas is recommended, I would say.
My prayers are thus answered.
Racers used to do mostly avoid Roas and go straight for the Roa nests. But if you ignore the Roas, there's a very high chance you're gonna get stunned and you're gonna die. I care a lot about getting a lot of experience in this zone as well. I really want to hit level 3.5, maybe 3.7 before I leave mudflats. So the reason for this is I want to hit level 4 before I go back to town. From Hailrick I will get a Quicksilver flask which requires level 4, and I really want to equip this before I go to Submerged Passage again, so that it has charges, so I don't have to kill monsters to get those charges. It just saves a lot of time to have that Quicksilver up from the start. So I'm at about 3.8. That's easily going to get me to level 4 once Hailrick is dead. So another thing to mention is that after Hailrick I will need to buy 4 different gems, each costing a Scroll of Wisdom. So any wisdoms that you find, they're worth backtracking for, and don't waste any wisdoms on things you don't really need to identify. The new Hailrick fight is pretty interesting. His AI is a lot more smart, sort of. I quite like it. I quite like how it's been redesigned. It's a bit more dangerous now. It takes some time to get used to it. So I pick up all the gems from Hailrick here, and I log out. So here there's a lot of different gems and rewards. So I'm picking up Quicksilver, I'm picking up Onslaught, and I'm vendoring everything that I have. I don't need any of that, and I'm picking up the following 4 gems. So there's Holy Flame Totem, Stoneblast Mine, Arcane Surge, and Orb of Storms. So notice that I had exactly 4 wisdoms. If I only had 2 or 3, I would have vendored the transmutation alteration shards. I really want to keep this portal because I need one in Submerged, as you will see. You want to make sure you equip the Quicksilver Flask before you actually go to Submerged so that it has full charges. If you're a racer, Submerged is one of the most difficult zones because there's a lot of gems you need to put in, but that just takes practice. The first thing I want to put in is Frostblink. It's already in. That's a movement ability. The sooner I put it in, the faster I am, essentially. Next is Frostbomb. That's my main tool to clear packs. After that, there's just a few more gems to put in, like Holy Flame Totem, Orb of Storms, Stoneblast Mine. Here I'm placing a portal because I want to come back here after I get to the prison waypoint. I want to come back here and then do the Flooded Depths quest to kill the Dweller. Ideally, I want to put all the gems in as fast as possible. That's very challenging to do that. So some of them are still not in.
Blue-green chest.
So as far as the gems go, Frostbomb goes with Onslaught. That's your main tool to clear packs and your Onslaught generator. If you also have a blue-green, a 3-link, you can put Orb of Storms together with those two, so both of them generate Onslaught for you. Otherwise, Orb of Storms can be on its own. Frostblink goes with Arcane Surge, and Stormblast Mine and Holy Totem you can leave unlinked. You may have noticed a second ago I went back for a coloring.
Small mana flask.
Act 1 is very dangerous now, and it's totally worth spending some extra time to make your character a little bit more tanky. So, Leather Belt, Coral Rings, Energy Shield Belt, all of those things are worth backtracking for, even if you are a racer who wants to min-max things.
Armorer, Portal.
So until you get the first recipe, which I will talk about in a second, the character might seem just a little bit weak. Frostbomb is not one-shotting monsters yet, so you need to do some extra damage either by frost blinking through monsters, which is the most efficient way, or by placing a Holy Flame Totem, or a combination of Orb of Storms and Stormblast Mine.
Iron Ring.
I'm coming back for an Iron Ring because I will need it for the caster recipes. Before I talk about them, I just want to mention that I want to hit level 7 before I leave Ledge, just to be on pace with the experience. So, Climb is another very dangerous zone. In the zone there are the Goatmen. The Goatmen will jump on you. You have to make sure you don't let a whole pack of Goatmen just straight up jump on top of you. That can very easily kill you. There's also the Goatmen Shaman. They will have they cast Molten Shell. If you do damage to them while you're near them, and the Molten Shell explodes, that can very easily kill you. So you have to make sure not to be near them when you do damage to them. Don't frost blink into them either.
I must have time.
So here I'm going to pick up the waypoint and go back to the town, and then through the portal that I put down in Super Edge Passage. So about the recipes, if you've leveled caster before, then you're probably used to doing wand recipes. In this build I will actually use scepters. I need to do the recipes on scepters because I'm going to be leap slamming. That's not the only movement skill I'm going to use, but I will talk about that later. So the scepter recipes, they essentially work the same way as caster recipes work. So you vendor a magic scepter with a specific resistance ring and an alteration orb, and you get a scepter which has a lot of flat damage to spells. It's one of the most important things about leveling a caster, and I put a lot of effort to get those scepters. So here I'm just simply killing the big crab. Make sure to pick up all the rare items, as you will need them to vendor them for shards. Here I'm picking up Added Lightning.
Goodbye.
The first scepter recipe that you can use is from level 8. Ideally you want to do this before Brutus, but doing it after Brutus is perfectly fine as well. The goal is to create 2 level 8 recipes before Act 2, or at the latest once you first get to town in Act 2. So the level 8 recipes, typically what you want to do is you want to vendor a magic scepter, a normal ruby ring, and an orb of alteration, an alt, and that gives you a scepter with lots of damage on it, lots of flat fire damage to spells. Here I'm doing the trial, so in this run I'm doing the lab, and I'm doing all the skill point quests as well. I've already killed the dweller, and I'm going to do Fairgrave's quest as well. You might wonder why I haven't done the recipe yet. I believe I don't have a magic scepter yet. So I've got the alteration, I've got a ring for this for the recipe, but I don't think I have a magic scepter yet. I've only got, let's just see, I've got 10
Small mana flask.
transmutation shards. If I had 10 more, I would have already done the recipe. So what I'm going to try to do is to vendor some rare items that Brutus hopefully drops for me. If you vendor items unidentified, they drop transmutation shards. If you vendor them identified, they typically sell for alteration shards, occasionally for orbs of augmentation. In terms of experience, you want to be about level 9 for the Brutus fight. It's not too important if you're slightly off or have more experience, that's fine. So this long walk to Brutus, it's a good idea to use this time to see how your currency situation is. Do you have what you need for the recipe? I know I have an alt, and I need to transmute at least. I've got a topaz, which I can use for a recipe. In Act 1, for this specific build, fire or lightning are optimal. They give you more damage than a cold craft. It doesn't make much of a difference whether you are using lightning craft or firecraft in Act 1 or 2. So here I'm placing down Orb of Storms, and I want to make sure that both me and Brutus are in the range of it, so that when I cast Stoneblast Mine, Orb of Storms procs again. I also want to have Holy Flame Totem up for most of the fight, just to do extra damage. The fight goes much smoother if I already have the recipe, but in this case I didn't. But it's fine to do the recipe after Brutus. So here I need to get at least one transmute. And I have a transmute. I'm picking up a ring, which I will need it perhaps a little later. I'm also picking up Leap Slam. And I'm checking if there's any links that the vendors have for me. And this is the time to prepare my first recipe. I have everything I need for it.
Farewell.
And I can go to the Prisoner's Gate. Now the build becomes a lot stronger once you already have the first recipe. Ideally, you want to create 2 recipes in Act 1, or at least the second one.
Rare sapphire.
Green red gloves.
At the start of Act 2. So at this point, Frostbomb will one-shot basically all white monsters. And if you make the second recipe, at some point it will carry on one-shotting all white monsters until the end of Act 2. So here I will start using the new movement skill combo. It's quite simple. You simply Leap Slam, and after you've Leap Slammed, you Frostblink. So it's a combination of those 2 skills. There is no animation for Frostblink if you use it after Leap Slam. It's different if you use Flame Dash. It's much slower. That's why Frostblink is used in this build instead of Flame Dash. So here I need to find the quest item, and then I will be on my way to Gale Fairgraves and complete the final skill point quest in Act 1.
Leather belt.
Blacksmith.
As I said earlier, defensive items like Leather Belt, they are worth going back for. Act 1 is a scary place, and all it takes is a very small mistake and you are potentially dead. I think I don't need that coral ring anymore, and I was lucky to find Fairgraves quickly.
Please understand that as a gentleman of honor, it pains me.
So right now my current situation is not particularly good. I still don't have a second magic wand, and I do need that if I want to make the second recipe. I have an Orb of Alteration, but I still need that magic point.
Temptation may turn even the noblest of men. I should take heed.
Green red chest.
So Act 1 is almost over. Basically all that's left is the Mervale fight. Now I haven't picked up the passive point reward from Fairgraves. Depending on the layout, you might choose to log out after Fairgraves and go back through one of the waypoints. In this case I went straight for the Cavern of Wrath, and I will pick up the reward for the quest once I go back to Act 1 to pick up the reward for Way Forward as well. So I want to get all of those things at the same time. I don't think it's worth coming back to Act 1 to just get that stuff. You could argue that maybe I could come back and do the second recipe. I might have just about enough transmutation shards to do that. It's a close call. I will be pointing out some mistakes I've made in this run as well, just to let you know how you can do these things better yourself. So here, just like with the Brutus fight, I'm placing down Orb of Storms and I am using Stormblast Mine on Mervale, trying to stack a bunch of different mines before I detonate them. I do need to be careful because Mervale can always move to a different place, or perhaps destroy the mines. This fight is quite challenging. It takes practice to get good at it. You can't let any of the geysers stun you. It's very important not to walk into them. You can get basic chain stun because of them. The long distance projectile that second phase Mervale shoots at you, that can also freeze you. Again, you can't let that hit you.
A woman corrupted
So I
beyond humanity.
want to pick up as many
I must cure
rare
this
items as I
plague
can,
before it sickens
and all the
all of
armorers vendor for wisdoms, so they're very
This forest
very useful for me.
is so twisted. I pray that I'm not too late to turn the tide of this corruption.
So that passive point that I just picked up, that actually has all resistance. If you picked up the Fairgraves reward, you would have had it before
Green red
Mervale.
helmet.
It's probably a little bit more safe. So here I believe I'm making a bit of a mistake. Let's just have a look at what I have in my inventory. So I still only have one scepter recipe, and I only have 4 transmutation shots, so I don't have a full transmute. I'm going to see, let's see what I have after I've vendored all of these items. Still looking for links. I find a helmet, unfortunately costs a transmute, which I don't have. So I actually have a transmute I could potentially... Oh, I see what I'm doing. So I have a tricky choice here. I can either use the transmute on a white scepter that I'm using, and do a wand recipe, or I can buy this helmet. It's honestly a very tough choice. I might not be able to find a blue-green for a while, so I decided to do it this way. I think I will carry on using just one scepter recipe until the end of Act 2. In most runs,
Sapphire.
you have the option to comfortably do 2 recipes by this point, and it's
Ring.
highly recommended to do that. Maybe I'm getting slightly unlucky, maybe there were some things that could have done slightly better. But one recipe is fine. I'll have to make that work. Fortunately, it's a lightning recipe, which gives more damage than a cold recipe. It's pretty suboptimal to just have one recipe and that being cold, as it deals less damage.
The lair of a toy maker. with pretensions of godhood.
So there's two main ways to clear packs. You either simply frostbomb them, that should one-shot white monsters, or you place Orb of Storms and just a couple of Stoneblast Mines, and that's enough to clear even a blue pack. Here I wanted to get more experience. Generally, my goal is to hit level 14 before I enter level 2 Chamber of Sins. The reason for this is I want to hit level 16 for Weaver to be able to equip some level 16 gems. And I know that there's going to be a magic pack here, so I chose to go for that. As you will notice throughout Act 2 and Act 3,
Leather
the
belt.
Frostblink on its own will kill a lot of monsters without you even trying. You're just simply moving forward and monsters die in your way.
Green red
That's
helmet.
one reason why Frostblink is so powerful, the Leap Slam combo. On top of that,
Green red
it's
helmet.
also good to proc Arcane Surge. So at this point I think I've made the decision that I'm not going to do another Scepter recipe until the end of Act 2. At the end of Act 2, caster always wants to do 2 level 20 recipes, and for this build it's always going to be 2 fire recipes if possible. So for that, what you need is you need 2 alterations, you need 2 magic ones with the best links you can have, and 2 rare ruby rings.
Magic scepter.
For most uniques in the game, when I see them, to me they are just a way to get alteration shards, maybe some alchemy shards. Don't think this was going to be particularly useful to me, so I vendor it immediately. I really wish I could buy that blue-green scepter, but unfortunately I don't have a transmute. But I got a few new scepters with better links. I think one of them is magic. That means I don't need the transmute anymore. Getting very unlucky in terms of transmute drops. If I had some more, this run would be
Sapphire.
quite a
Your
bit.
trust is the only reward I need, my Lord of Light.
So I'm doing some gem swapping just so that I can fit the gems on the new scepters that I just got.
Blue helmet.
I can finally start using a 3-link. I think I didn't have a 3-link up to this point at all. It's not necessary. This build is actually a build of 2 links. You need 3 or 4 2 links in the first 2 acts. From level 18 I will also need a red-green for Leap Slam with faster attacks. But 3 links, well, they're help, they're not necessary. If you get quite unlucky like I'm getting, it's fine. You can do just fine on just 2 links for quite a while. I still don't have movement speed boots, but I have 2 augmentations already. If I find another one, I'll be able to craft movement speed.
Socket scepter.
I'll be able to craft movement speed boots once I get to the caverns waypoint. So I am almost level 16. Once I hit level 16,
Blue
I can
helmet.
put in Herald of Thunder, which buffs my DPS by about 10%. Totally worth using it. If possible, try not to wear a body armor because it slows me down a little bit. I have just about enough experience to hit level 16. That's why it was worth killing that pack of magic monsters in the Chamber of Sins. Taking some unnecessary risks here. I almost died. That's one of the issues that I have when I'm racing. I'm focusing a lot on item management, and that occasionally gets me killed. This time I was maybe a little lucky.
Portal.
So shortly after leveling to 16, you can level gems. Stoneblast Mine gets another level, and it's quite useful. So here I'm doing a pre-mine. It's totally worth doing a 15 mine pre-mine for Weaver, it makes the fight much easier and a bit faster as well. So I've already got the Herald of Thunder in, that increases my damage. Once Weaver is gone, it's important to keep DPSing the spiders, otherwise they will overwhelm you and kill you. So don't go AFK for a few seconds, because they're gonna kill you immediately. If possible, it's nice to do some pre-mine before the second phase as well. Sometimes it's a bit challenging.
Magic scepter.
Notice that I am frost blinking through Weaver and other bosses.
Magic scepter.
This is to dodge their abilities to do a bit of damage to them with Frostblink and to proc Arcane Surge. So here I'm picking up Elemental Focus from Silk. That's a quest reward for killing Weaver. I am identifying rare items. So generally, if you have a combination of magic and rare items, it's better to identify rare items because they will give you more shards per wisdom scroll, and wisdoms are, like all currency in speedruns, quite limited. So this scepter vendors for an augment, which most racers will be unhappy about because they need alterations, but I actually need another augment to craft movement speed soon enough. I also need just a little more alterations, and I have exactly 2 alts at this point. 2 is precisely what I need. I need 2 to purchase Herald of Ice and faster attacks. Herald of Ice is going to be the second reservation that I use together with Herald of Thunder. It's also about 10% damage buff. You don't need to buy that before Weaver. I don't think it's particularly important. It's better to pick up all the gems at once after Weaver is dead. And the faster attacks, they are necessary for this build. They make your leap slam much faster. As soon as you hit level 18, you can use them, and it's important to have a red-green socket for them. I've already got prepared gloves, which have red-green. With Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice, your damage should be very nice, even if you just have 1 scepter recipe, but in most runs at this point you would have 2. Creating is not going to take long. I'm proccing the Arcane Surge with Frostbling. I think that's something that I don't always do. It's like it's a mistake that I'm making. It's important to proc Arcane Surge, and it's very convenient with Frostblink because it does extra damage to the boss. Frostblink does more damage than Flame Dash.
Green red boots.
Small thing here. So notice that when I noticed the shrine, I didn't immediately jump in, try to pick it up, and then kill the monsters. It's quite risky to jump into a shrine, especially if you don't know what the shrine is. If the shrine buffs monsters damage or makes them faster, it's a very easy way to die. Typically the best way, in my opinion, to do shrines quickly and safely is to clear some of the monsters around the shrine, and only then to jump in, pick it up, and then clear the remaining monsters. With Oak, it's important to use Frostbomb to limit the life regeneration that Oak has. Just to get back to the point about shrines, if you have a shrine in a very dangerous zone, for example, a climb or belly of the beast, you need to be extra careful. This is it makes a zone that's already difficult even more challenging. You're highly likely to die if you're not careful around a shrine in a zone like belly of the beast. So in this run I am helping Alira, primarily for the resistances that you get from it. I'm also doing the Way Forward quest. It's a perfect place to... It's a perfect time to do it, of course, because you just help Alira in the same zone. So just to go over the order in Act 2, so at first I'm going to do... in Act 2 I do Chamber of Sins, killing Fidelitas. You do this first because you want to pick up the Herald of Thunder. After that, I'm going to Riverways and Western Forest, picking up both waypoints. Waypoint in Riverways and Western Forest, you will need both of them. because you will be back to those zones later on in the run. Then comes Weaver. After Weaver you pick up gems. After Weaver you go and kill Kraton, go and kill Oak, and then you help Alira and do the way forward. And here we are. I will also need to do the trial in the crypt. I choose not to do this very early on in the run. I want to wait until I already have faster attacks linked with Leap Slam, so I move faster. Not level 18 yet, I believe. That's why I can't equip fast attacks yet. I'm hitting 18 now, so I will probably go to the crossroads and onto the crypt the next time I'm at some waypoint. So I'm going to, I hope, put in the faster attacks as soon as possible. You want to do this as soon as you hit level 18. I'm a little bit slow about this here, prioritizing other things. Notice that when you move the gems around, some of the reservations might be turned off. For example, my Herald device is off right now, so there's always something you can improve. With the addition of some new monsters, Vol Ruins became more dangerous, so it's important to be quite careful. I just noticed that my faster attacks is not in yet. It's in now.
I beg of you, God, help me to lead this muddle back into the light.
And my Herald device is operational again.
I must have time.
So I think I'm going to take this weapon to get to Crossroads. Yep, so once you have faster attacks, this is the best time to do the trial. I like to keep my inventory quite organized, so I know exactly where all the things I need are. You might notice that I haven't found any essence monsters or any alchemies. It's quite unfortunate. But you will see how you will see what I do if I don't happen to find any. So with the movements being, with the new movement combo, what you want to do is every time Frostblink is off cooldown, you want to Leap Slam and then follow that up with Frostblink. And when Frostblink is on cooldown, Leap Slam as much as possible. I'm wasting a bit of time because I'm not Leap Slamming as much as I should be, because I'm trying to do some stuff in my inventory. But that's sometimes something that you just have to do. It's typically worth killing Tormented Spirits because they always drop some rare items, especially if they possess a monster.
Armorer.
Remember to live.
Trap and Mine damage, which I just bought, is an optional gem. You only buy it if you have a blue-green for your Stoneblast Mine. Ideally, you buy it at the same time you buy Herald of Ice and Faster Attacks, but at the time I didn't have the alteration for it. After you've done the trial, it's the best. After you've done the crypt trial, it's the best time to come back to Act 1 to pick up all the remaining stuff from this act. So I'm getting 2 passive points for Way Forward and for Fairgraves that I didn't pick up earlier on. And there's a couple of gems that you need to buy at this point. I'm also buying, I think, an Iron Ring, which I will need for 1 recipes. Here I'm buying Flame Wall, Steel Skin, and Combustion. Flame Wall and Steel Skin, they cost a Wisdom each, and Combustion costs a Transmute. So if at this point in the run you can't afford to you don't have a transmit and 2 wisdoms, delay going back to Act 1, so you only have to go back to Act 1 the one time and don't have to come back there again, just to make the run a little bit more efficient. But as soon as you have the transmit and 2 wisdoms, go back to Act 1, pick up the passives, and get the 3 gems. It's quicker for me to travel to hideout rather than walking to the waypoint. To travel to the hideout, I am using a hideout macro that's through Lootbot. Lootbot is basically the only macro that's of use for speedruns or short races. I'm using it to log out quicker and to travel to hideout. That's all you really need. And maybe a copy-paste regex, just to look for some items in the shops. Just to show this to you, the bears have a new animations, a new ability. So what they do is they stand on their back legs and they slam, and that slam does a lot of damage. So make sure you are not in front of them when they do that. Thankfully, I do enough damage at this point that I don't particularly care. They die before they can get off their slam, but it's very easy to die. So at some point in late Act 2, you should stop using Frost Bomb and instead use Orb of Storms as your main way to clear packs. So before that, your links should be Frost Bomb with Orb of Storms and Onslaught. If you have a 3-link, if you don't have a 3-link, then the Orb of Storms can go somewhere else as a 1-link. Once you get rid of Frost Bomb, that's replaced by a Combustion, ideally. You could also replace it with Added Lightning if you're not using that for anything. You can get rid of Frost Bomb at any point after, I would say, Oak. You kind of want to have it for Oak because it reduces his life regeneration. In summons, I will only remove the Frost Bomb at Ball Oversoul, but it's not too important exactly when you do it, just at some point in this part of the run. So notice how many monsters Frostblink kills along the way. That's really the beauty of this new movement skill combo. I'm going to craft my movement speed right now. You get the recipe at that waypoint. I have prepared boots with good links for it specifically. You need to make sure that the boots have an open prefix. Movement speed craft is a prefix, so
must give way to the day.
if you have a pair of magic boots that already have a prefix and a suffix, that won't work. So I'm almost at the Val Oversoul, the final boss of this act. The important thing is to hit level 20 before that fight. The reason for this is the crafts, the scepter crafts that use rare rings require level 20. And the most efficient way to do them is during the boss fight. I still haven't found any essences, which is quite unlucky. In most runs at this point you will have one or two. I believe I am making a small mistake as far as the scepter recipes go, but I will tell you about it once we get to that point. So I have plenty of experience. I'm almost level 21. Level 20 is the minimum at this point, but any more experience after that is fine. As far as I'm concerned, you can't really have too much experience. As long as you're getting the experience in an efficient way, it's always a good thing. Basically for the entire run. Any efficient experience is worth it.
Blue boots.
By getting more experience at the end of Act 2, it's going to make experience easier in Act 3. Okay, so here the the most efficient way to create a level 21 recipe is to do it at this point. So what you do is you get to the boss room, you click on the Dark Altar, and the long animation, which lasts about 2 years, starts. And in that time, you have the opportunity to unsocket gems from your scepters or wand, depending on what you use, prepare all the stuff from the recipe, and you do it. So at this point, as you can see in my inventory, I have a single alt, and I have no essences, no alchemies. Now, what I believe, let's just see. What I believe I missed is that I'm actually wearing a rare sapphire which dropped in Act 1, which I forgot about. If I remembered that, I would have simply done a level 20 cold craft using that sapphire. But at this point in the run, I didn't realize I had that. So instead, what I'm doing is I'm doing a level 14 scepter craft. That's something you might have to do if you have no access to rare ruby, sapphire, or topaz. So I'm doing a level 14 firecraft using a magic ruby. After you've done the recipe and you go back to the room, you can put the gems back in. You have some time to do that, and you have the time to also pre-mine the boss. It's important to pre-mine all the bosses you can with as many mines as you can. Fortunately, I'm also getting the dark arts notable right now. Again, pre-mining for the second phase. Tried dodging those lasers. I'm not doing the best job, but I'm tanky enough that I can
Rare topaz.
tank a couple of them. Now, I found a rare topaz, which actually is quite fortunate, because that lets me do a second recipe. I can use the second. I can use the rare topaz to make a lightning recipe. Just to reiterate, in this build, you typically do 2 level 20 fire crafts. So that's really the goal. So the way it usually goes in runs is you will find a couple of essences or a couple of alchemies, and you will use them on normal rubies, and you will do 2 level 20 firecrafts on scepters. In this run, I end up settling on a level 14 firecraft and level 20 lightning craft. It's not optimal, but as you will see, the build is strong enough that you can
Return if you must.
get a great time even with a slightly suboptimal setup. I definitely could have done could have made some better decisions with respect to the scepter recipes.
A fitting place to put things
After
right.
rendering all the things I found in the act, I actually have an alchemy as well, which I could potentially use. But
Blue chest.
one thing I found is that it's better to do things very quickly in town rather than spending 30 seconds or 40 seconds trying to figure out the absolute most optimal solution to whatever problem you have. It's important to just do things quickly and get on with the run. So Act 3 is the act of resistances. This is why I checked my resistances right now. I think I noticed my fire res is a little bit low. I will do some stuff soon enough to take care of that. I picked up a chest specifically because it has some blue and green sockets. I will need them for some gems, especially when I transition into the full-on fire build at level 28.
Life in his right hand, death in his left.
I'm not talking much about the passive tree. The entire passive tree, as well as the order in which you pick up the passives, is in the written guide that I will link below the YouTube video.
Blue blobs.
I've think I've made the decision at this point that I'm not going to try to do another recipe. So I've got at the moment a level 20 lightning recipe and level 14 fire, and I've decided that because I have 2-3 links, then that's basically enough, and it's not worth taking the time to do another one. But you could potentially at this point try to replace the level 14 recipe with a level 20. That's perfectly fine as well. It's kind of up to you in a run like this.
Enough of this!
At this point I'm buying Anger. This will replace Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder. Around this time I'm also looking at my gear to see if there's anything that I should get to be a bit more tanky. So what I'm referring to here is, at this point you really should have a leather belt, a couple of decent life flasks. These aren't the best, but I already have a giant flask here, which I can start using I think from level 24. I also have 2 resistance rings. So in my head there's sort of like a checklist at this point. Before I get to Clarissa, I see, do I have a leather belt? Do I have 2 resistance rings, a good life flask, and a decent mana flask? If you don't have any of those, this is the perfect time to spend your wisdom scrolls to buy those things, to make sure that you don't die in Act 4 or Act 3. It doesn't matter much which resistance rings you have on, as long as they are resistance rings and you know, one of your resistances isn't overcapped while the other ones are very low. So yeah, I've decided that I'm not doing another scepter craft, so any spare essences or alchemies I have right now I'm happy to use on gear. This run only goes as far as Act 5 Kitava, so it's best to use that currency as soon as possible so that you get that extra bit of tankiness as soon as possible. There's no point saving it for, you know, Act 4 or Act 5. So Anger that I just bought requires level 24, so from level 24 you equip that and you drop Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice, so you're sort of reducing the socket pressure as well. So the next tree, node on the tree will be a big one. It's Elemental Overload, and it's a classic racing node together with
Magic Scepter.
Dark Arts, which I got around the time I did Vol Oversoul. I certainly haven't mastered using the new movement skill combo, but it's very fun and satisfying to use. There's a lot of potential. Another alchemy, I think I'm gonna try to use it on one of the white items that I'm wearing as soon as possible. Yeah, it's best to use alchemies or essences on items you think you will use until the end of the run, or at least for a long time. Resistance rings, leather belt, those are primary candidates. So after doing the trial, I'm picking up Flammability. The reason why this build uses Flammability is, well, there's a few reasons. From level 28, you are a full-on fire build, so that makes perfect sense. It's not quite the most efficient curse to use before level 28, but there's no point investing another alteration, buying a different curse, especially that in most runs you will actually have double level 20 Sceptercraft, and that's fire based, so Flammability is definitely best. I'm also picking up the passive point from Hargan, and at this point I'm trying to take care of my res. So the best way to fix your res is using Mastercrafts. They each cost a transmute, Fire, Cold, or Lightning. I find that this is the best time in the game to do Mastercrafts. So around the time I'm in Marketplace or Catacombs, I'm looking at my resistances, seeing which of them are low, which ones I should craft, and so that after the trial is done, I can immediately craft it on my scepters. Scepters are the best for this because they always have a suffix open. If you do the scepter recipe, and you will be using them until the end of the run. In case you didn't know, you can also do those mastercrafts on white items. So if you've got a white topaz, for example, you can add 16 to 20 lightning res to it. It doesn't have to be a magic or a rare item. White items work just as well for resistance mastercrafts. Here I believe I am level 23 and a half. Because of this, I'm choosing to go to do Solaris first. The rule of thumb is you want to just go back a bit. The rule of thumb is to go to docks first if you are about level 24. If you are lower than that, you won't get as much experience because you are already within some sort of experience penalty, so you'll be getting less experience. So if you're not quite 24 yet, go do Solaris first. Here I think I'm dropping a couple of gems, so let me just make sure. Yeah, Holy Flame Totem and Rolling Magma. Okay, so Holy Flame Totem, in Acts 1 and 2, it's worth putting down Holy Flame Totem to kill large packs, and it's worth using it for boss fights. Once you get to Act 3, you certainly don't want to be using it for packs because your Orb of Storms is just a lot more powerful, and unlike Holy Flame Totem, Orb of Storms will generate you Onslaught, which is very important for any kind of speed leveling. Rolling Magma. So what I do as a bit of a habit is I tend to keep a couple of extra gems in my inventory in case I ever want to vendor them together with an iron ring to get like a cold ring or fire ring like ruby or sapphire, either for scepter recipes or just because I'm missing a resistance ring. But at this point I think I've already decided that I don't need that at all anymore.
Blue-green chest.
I think I found a different chest that requires less attributes. I typically start well, it depends on the run, but I typically start wearing a chest around Act 3 once I need the extra gems. But if you find a 3-link chest in Act 1 or Act 2 and it's got the links you need, you should totally put it on. It's worth it. Links are quite important. Links are the most important things as far as your body armor, gloves and helmet go. For boots you want movement speed, for scepters you want damage, scepter recipes. For rings you need resistances. From belt you want life. Leather belt is, you should really have leather belt every run, unless you happen to find a rare belt with great stats like triple rest or something. From an amulet you typically want attributes. So after I've done the docks, I will pick up the rare amulet reward from Diala. Typically you want to pick up Jade, because if you have no dexterity anywhere else on your gear, you will need a little bit more dexterity to be able to equip Cremation, which is the main single target skill from level 28. Okay, so I've already hit level 24, so I should be putting in Anger, and I'm choosing to put that instead of Steelskin. Steelskin is a... you can think of it as a free layer of defense. There's practically no cost to it. It only costs you a single wisdom. You pick it up at the same time as you go back for gems and passive skill point rewards in Act 1. So you can simply put it on your left click if you happen to have a red socket available. I think at this point I don't have the socket for it anymore. It's optional, you don't necessarily need it. So I want to just use Anger right now, no Herald of Ice, no Herald of Thunder. That frees up a socket, which is pretty convenient.
Good gem. Good gem.
They're no longer good gems. Right, docks. Docks is a great time to catch up on experience. In most runs you will need to Clear
Blue
majority of
green
the monsters in
chest.
docks so that you don't fall behind on experience.
Chance.
The goal should be to be level 25 and a half before you get to the Ebony Barracks. If you don't hit that, you could have some troubles. Here, you will notice me doing something
Magic
a bit
Scepter.
strange. My rule of thumb with strongbox is that I don't want to open any unidentified strongboxes, because if they freeze me, I can very easily die. I try to play it safe. I'm doing it differently this time because I'm already level 25 or 25.15, I think in this case. And if this strongbox freezes me, I'm pretty happy to just log out and move on to Ebony Barracks. So even if the worst happens, it's fine for me to leave this zone. Whereas if this was any other zone, I couldn't just log out because I would have to go back to the zone and that would waste me a lot of time. This one does actually freeze me, so I am logging out. I maybe cut it a little bit too close. I almost died. Not very good. My reaction time was a little slow. So dexterity amulet is typically what you want at this point. Now my experience is a little bit low. I said that you typically want level 25 and a half, and I would have gotten that if not for that strongbox. I'm just double checking that I haven't died, and I haven't. Just to show you on the passive tree. So, like I told you in the written guide, there is POB, and then it shows you very clearly what passives you should be picking and in what order. I'm doing things in a slightly different order here, which is a small mistakes. So basically I'm picking the fire nodes, I believe, instead of attack speed for minions. So in this build I'm actually picking up minion attack speed. The reason for this is there's a node that makes you benefit from those nodes as well as a caster, and attack speed is useful for leap slam. The build has so much damage that you can afford to pick up some attack speed. It doesn't need any more. Here you want to make sure that you have your flammability. This is basically the first time you're using flammability after you picked it up from Maramoa. Maramoa, is that who she's what her name is, I think. Yes, so it's important to curse Gravicious, and it's a pretty dangerous fight if your fire res is quite low. In most cases you will have to kite Gravicious a little bit, and if you do that, try to kite him towards the entrance to Lunaris. I think my fire res right now is decent but not great, so I need to be extra careful. You may have noticed I swapped to a better life flask about a minute ago. It's important to upgrade your flasks, they help a lot in terms of staying alive. So I still need a bit of extra experience because I left the docks a little bit early, and so I'm doing those packs even though I am enfeebled. So you still do so much damage even with suboptimal scepter recipes that you can clear those packs very quickly. Note that after you kill Piety, you will need at least 2 Orbs of Alteration to buy some gems, so it's important to pick up some rare items so you can vendor them for old shards. Typically Piety will drop enough so that you have all you need. In terms of experience, the goal is to hit level 27 before Piety or at Piety. The reason for this is you want to hit level 28 before Dominus. That's very important because this is when you do the swap to fire. It's important to have Armageddon Brand and Cremation for Dominus, and then for the lab. This build I'm doing lab after Dominus, and this build doesn't need library. It's a waste of time. So I don't particularly need to wear that chest yet. I would only put it on if I needed to put some gems into it. And the little defense it provides is not particularly important to me. So I'm almost level 27, basically on pace, so I've made up for a slight experience issue earlier on.
Portal.
That bug where you still get stuck with Leap Slam has been in the game for years now, I believe. Fortunately, still not fixed. Doesn't happen a lot though. It's very rare. Be careful about those tentacle miscreations. Just a little tip, so once the tentacle miscreations start shooting, they won't turn or they won't change direction for a while. So if you want, you can always take advantage of that just to make it a little bit safer, but generally at this point you have so much damage that it's not even necessary.
But have you thought what it might drive others to do if
So here, as with all bosses, you are pre-mining, you are putting down Orb of Storms. Once Piety is targetable, you curse, flammability,
in return?
and you detonate the mines. And Piety obviously has several different phases, and depending on your resistance, you can play them a lot more safely or a lot more boldly. In this case,
Chromatic.
you do so much damage that it doesn't even matter, and that's with quite suboptimal scepter recipes. This build is just very powerful. After Piety, you pick up Armageddon Brand. This will be your main tool to clear packs. It's absolutely overpowered. Here, as I told you before, I need 2 alterations to pick up gems. So typically I will go and pick up the gems that I need from Act 2 at this point, right after Piety, just to make sure that I am ready for the swap to fire. Okay, and you also need to buy Cremation for an Orb of Chance. If you don't have an Orb of Chance, you can buy it for an Orb of Fusing from this NPC. So throughout the run, make sure that you are on the lookout for chances or fuses. It's very important to have one of those. If you get very unlucky and you don't have any fuses or chances, you can buy an Orb of Fusing for 4 alterations. And if you don't have 4 alterations, 4 Jeweler Orbs, so 4 Jeweler Orbs trade up to 1 fuse. And you can even purchase Jeweler Orbs for alterations. So in the worst case scenario, you can literally pick up lots of rare items, vendor them for alterations, and trade your way up to an Orb of Chance. As a rule of thumb, if you don't have a Chance Orb or an Orb of Fusing, you should pick up any Jeweler Orbs that you find, so that you only need to vendor a bunch of items to get a few remaining alterations to trade up for that Chance Orb. Okay.
See you.
So you're also picking up the passive for killing Piety, and you are going back to Act 2. Ideally, this should be the last time you come back to Act 2. I think I'm still crafting some resistances because I have a transmute for it. The better your resistances, the easier Act 3 is, and just easier it is for you to survive. So, the 2 main gems that you need at this point is Wave of Conviction and Desecrate. If you have a spare alteration, purchase Concentrated Effect. That's going to be useful for Cremation depending on your links. But that is optional, you don't necessarily need that. This build, Cremation is powerful enough that it works on a 2 link, honestly. So let me tell you a bit more about the swap into fire. So it might seem quite challenging, but with a bit of practice you can do it on the go without stopping and without too much effort. The key is having the right method. So the first part of this method is now. So as soon as possible, so basically in the Imperial Gardens, you want to try to equip Wave of Conviction and Desecrate, so that you don't have to swap all the gems at once when you hit level 28. So I believe you're going to see me do that right now. So that's Desecrate. I'm putting it exactly where I want it on my skill bar. And I believe I'm going to put in Wave of
Blue,
Conviction
green
as
gloves.
well. As far as the other gems, so essentially Armageddon Brand will be replacing Orb of Storms. So if right now your Orb of Storms is linked to Onslaught and Combustion, Armageddon Brand simply replaces Orb of Storms, so that it will be linked to and it will be linked to Onslaught and Combustion. The Stormblast Mine 2 or 3 link will be replaced by a Cremation. If your Stormblast Mine is in a blue-blue-green, that makes things easier because you do need at least one green socket for Cremation. Sorry about the
Must have time to
Discord
gather my
notifications. Someone's clearly spamming me while I'm doing this run. So yes, for the Cremation 3 link, blue-blue-green is ideal. You can use any combination of Added Lightning, Ellie Focus, and Concentrated Effect with it. So I am just opening the door to the lab and getting the waypoint. I'm actually going to do the lab after Dominus. I want to finish the swap to fire so that I am a lot more powerful and I can go through lab much quicker. Just to finish off about the swap to fire, if you have a room for it, you can put in Flame Wall as a one link just to give yourself a little bit more damage against bosses. Flame Wall is useful because it adds damage to any projectiles that go through it. So in this case, Cremation. To make your life a little bit easier, try to hit level 28 in Scepter of God or early on in the upper Scepter of God. This way you have some extra time to put all the gems in before the Dominus fight. If you hit level 28 just before Dominus, you have very little time to do the swap, so try to get a bit more experience. I'm almost at level 28. Once I hit level 28, my first priority is to put in Armageddon Brand. The other gems you only need once you get to Dominus. Armageddon Brand is an amazing way to clear packs. It's significantly better than Orb of Storms, so you want to have it in as soon as possible so that you clear packs faster.
Blue chest.
Once Armageddon Brand is in, there's no longer any need for Orb of Storms. So I checked ahead of time where is Orb of Storms in my gems, and so I can swap that faster. And now I'm trying to swap the other gems. So I'm getting rid of Stormblast Mine, don't need that anymore. I'm making sure that Cremation has all the supports it needs. I just put in Flame Wall, which is this little thing on T. And that's essentially the hard part of the run done. After you swap to fire, the game in a way becomes a lot easier. So just let me walk you through how boss fights go once you've swapped to fire. So again, it's quite simple. You need to spawn some corpses so that you can use Cremation. So you cast Desecrate, a one link Desecrate to spawn some corpses. You spawn 3 Cremations before the boss is targetable. You cast just a couple of Armageddon Brands, a couple of Flame Walls around the boss, and once the boss is targetable, you simply curse them with Flammability and you spam Wave of Conviction, and then you essentially just spam Wave of Conviction for a while Cremation is doing a lot of damage. So as you can see, these monsters are dying basically instantly. This build is extremely powerful. In a typical run, you will have a bit more damage because you will have 2 fire recipes, whereas I only have basically 1.5 of them. So again, make sure to keep the boss cursed, make sure to apply exposure that you get through Wave of Conviction. Refresh your cremations if they run out or the boss moves. Have Armageddon Brand near the boss so that does some extra damage as well. Right around this time or a little bit after, you will pick up the Runebinder Keystone, which means that 2 Armageddon Brands will be able to do damage to a single monster. Okay, so that fight is honestly quite easy if you are used to the fire spec and you've got all the gems in. After Dominus, I do the trial. Another reason why I like to do the... Sorry, not the trial, the lab. Another reason why I like to do the lab after Dominus is because I'm already like level 28, maybe 29. So I don't suffer an experience penalty
Hybrid flask.
in the lab as much as I would if I was like level 27 before doing Dominus. To get through lab faster, I recommend using PoE lab, just to see what layout you're in, which way you're supposed to be going. You can open that in a tab on the second monitor, or however you like to do this. So again, once your fire spec is fully operational, these fights go extremely quick. Whereas if you were still working with Orb of Storms and Stormblast Mine, this wouldn't go as fast. This bug again. Chris, come on. From this point onward,
Rare scepter.
let me just let you know about this. So, if you are doing a dedicated Act 5 Kitava kill and you don't intend to progress to Act 6, you can choose to only hit level 34 for Kitava. The reason for 34 is your Cremation and your Armageddon Brand both get a level up at level 34. So if you choose to only finish the race at level 34, from this point onward you basically only need to kill white monsters enough to refresh your Quicksilver charges and your Onslaught. If instead you want to finish Act 5 at a level that's more appropriate towards, you know, progressing to Act 6, which will be like 40. If you want to progress on to Act 6 and further, level 40 is basically the goal. And I will talk about some experience benchmarks for you depending on what kind of run you're interested in. But before that, let me talk about the lab. So you are ascending as a Guardian. Guardian, in its current balance, is one of the main reasons why Templar is better than Witch, really. The Guardian Ascendancy gives you access to the node that gives you charges. So it gives you charges, frenzy charges, endurance charges, and power charges in a way that's very easy to sustain them, to keep them up, and that's just very powerful. Frenzy charges not only give you damage, but also make you attack and cast faster, which is both useful for your spells and for your leap slam. You leap slam faster, so you move through zones faster thanks to this ascendancy, which is extremely powerful. Now once you have the lab, and especially the lab and the minion attack speed nodes, it's no longer worth it to use Frostblink. At that point you should drop Frostblink and just focus on leap slamming. At that point you already have access to Wave of Conviction, which you can use to generate Hurricane Surge. You can also use Flame Wall, or what else is there? There's your Curse. Now because this is a sort of a speedrun, I don't much care about loot at this point, so I don't even bother with the chests. It's simply faster for me to keep going rather than picking up that loot. As a general rule of thumb, if you're doing an Act 5 Kitava run, whether this is 80% or 100%, your gear should be finalized at the start of Act 4. So you should have all the links you need. You should have your resistances fixed and all of that. So you shouldn't spend any time picking up items. You shouldn't checking NPCs for links if you intend to finish the run at the end of Act 5. At this point, the priority is to just zoom forward. Now this is where I'm allocating the points, so there's harmony of purpose. So you get the charges on hit, not on kill, but on hit, which is extremely powerful. As you will see in a second, I'll be able to sustain these charges fairly easily. And I am no longer using Frostblink. I'm getting rid of that entirely. I don't need that. What I should do at this point is link Wave of Conviction with Arcane Surge, but I think for some reason I'm choosing to link Flame Wall with that, but that's fine as well. I think Wave of Conviction is best with Arcane Surge at this point, since you use it more than you use your other abilities like Flame Wall or Curse. The playstyle at this point is quite straightforward. All it takes is a single Armageddon Brand to clear most small packs of white monsters. If there's a blue pack, you can cast multiple Armageddon Brands if you already have the Rune Binder. You can also use Wave of Conviction or from ability to just get a bit more damage.
Blue, green helmet.
Right, so let me tell you about the
I was born to this land.
experience benchmark just a little bit more. So if you intend to finish Act 5 at level 34, which is sort of the typical level for an advanced speedrunner, if you intend to do that, the benchmarks that I would suggest to you is hit level 30 before you leave Dried Lake, as I just hit level 32 before you enter Belly 1, and hit level 33 before you enter the Ascent, so that's sort of the zone after you've killed Malachi. Now if instead you want to finish Act 5 at level 40, which is the perfect level if you want to progress to Act 6, what you should do is you should stay in the Dried Lake until about 30 and a half, and then get quite a bit more experience before Belly of the Beast. So you want to be level 33 and a half before Belly 1 in such a run. And if you do that, you might still need to do like an extra run of Chamber of Innocence in Act 5 just to make sure that you hit that level 40, but other than that you shouldn't really have any difficulties. So here, just like with the Dominus fight, I am using Desecrate to spawn corpses. I am putting 3 cremations. I'm putting down some Flame Walls, Armageddon Brands, cursing the boss, and dies instantly. Here, you will notice I'm also buying portals. The reason for this is in Act 4, it's quicker to portal to town rather than to log out like it is in some other acts. I'm even vending some blacksmiths so that I have more wisdom so I can buy more portals. So you probably need about 5 or 6 portals in this act, ideally. It's not too big of a problem if you don't have them though. So what you will see me do for most of Act 4 and 5 is to simply cast a single Armageddon Brand every few seconds on packs of white monsters. That's the best way to get and keep up your onslaught. Occasionally I might kill a magic pack, but I am aiming to finish the race or the run here at level 34, so I really don't need much experience at all. Notice how fast Leap Slam at this point is. You've got plenty of attack speed through some nodes on the tree. You often get frenzy charges. It's a very fast mobile character at this point. Here I chose to get some more experience. I like white strong boxes because there's basically no risk involved and just extra monsters for you to kill. Usually not very tanky monsters either. As I said earlier, I'm not a big fan of opening unidentified boxes. Here I always go for the reso part first,
Portal.
but I suppose it doesn't make much of a difference. In this zone, you can always put down a single cremation in front of each of those gates. Well, you only have 3 of them, but you can take care of the 4th gate by using Wave on Armageddon Brand. Around the time of early Act 4 or mid Act 4, I like to get some more health on the tree. The reason for this is it's mostly Belly of the Beast. Bellies of the Beast, both levels are very dangerous. They are some of the most dangerous zones in the game. Notice here I'm not even picking up the Orb of Binding because I'm only playing until the end of Act 5 and my gear is basically finalized. I don't need that anymore. What was I saying? I was saying about... What was I talking about just now? Lost my train of thought. Oh yes, the life. So it's important to pick up some extra life before Belly of the Beast. It's a dangerous zone. You have to play a little bit safe. I would recommend taking the entire Purity of the Flesh node on the tree before you get to Belly of the Beast. The build has so much damage that you can easily afford to do that without slowing down your progress.
I must have time to gather my will.
I'm not a big fan of killing monsters in this zone. They are very tanky. It takes quite a bit to kill them, and they're not very efficient at giving you onslaught. Here these unique monsters have so little health that
Rare wand.
the fight lasts no time, even if I'm playing it slightly inefficiently as I just did.
A king of swords is nothing.
Just to show you
Rare
my
wand.
resistances here. I think I mentioned that before, but the goal is to have at least the goal is to have at least 60 fire res, 60 cold res, and maybe like 50 plus lightning res. I have enough. The rest of fight is fairly straightforward as long as your resistance to cold is quite high. If it's not, you need to pay a lot of attention to make sure that you play it safe. If your cold res is weak and you can't seem to fix it in any way, you could always consider doing a swap to a cold ring just for this fight. There's basically 2 things you need to watch out for in this fight. There's the swords that are on the ground, don't stand in them, and then there's the special ability that Dereso has where he spawns a bunch of clones.
We give our
But it
fallen
shouldn't be
hero-
much of a problem. So again, it's faster to portal to town rather than to log out. And here I'm choosing to pick up the passive at this point rather than later on. It doesn't make much of a difference. It lets you pick up another life node potentially, or a different node if you prefer. I think in this case I don't feel I need more health at this point, so I'm getting some extra damage.
Burns with wrath.
The one downside of Leap Slam is that it doesn't let you do some of the skips that
Transmute.
racers would do with Smoke Mine, for example skips in the comb areas, but it's a small price to pay. It's a very powerful mobility gem.
Armorer.
This little skip here, Smoke Mine could do that, but Leap Slam I think cannot. So as I said, if you're only interested in hitting level 34 at the end of Act 5, you only need to really hit level 32 before Belly 1. I am already at level 32, so I know I am on pace. If this was a, for example, Act 10 run or a League Start run, your goal would be to hit level 33 and a half, at least before entering the Belly of the Beast level 1. I've done runs on this build recently where I would aim to finish Act 5 level 40, and from
Blacksmith.
my testing, it only takes a few extra minutes to hit level 40 instead of level 34. So if you prefer to get more experience to make your character a bit stronger, that's perfectly fine. Even in a race scenario, that would be perfectly acceptable. At worst, you're only going to waste a couple of minutes, but you are increasing your odds at staying alive. Just as a reference, I've done a run recently where I killed Act 5 Kitava with all skill points at level 40. The lap completed, resistance nearly capped. I think it was 1 hour and 25, which is maybe 1 or 2 minutes more than I would expect from a 34 finish.
Topaz.
Maybe I got a little bit more lucky in that run, it's hard to say. The reason why there isn't much of a difference in time between level 34 and level 40 finish is that if you finish the race at level 34, then you are hitting pretty severe experience penalties in Act 4 and 5. So while you're still killing quite a few monsters, you're not getting the experience, the full experience. So if you just kill a little bit more in Act 4 and 5, you will end up several levels higher
My God takes good care of me.
at the end of Act 5. With respect to this fight, make sure to not let Piety hit you with her melee. That could potentially one-shot you if you only have about 700 health. Typically in this fight you need to refresh your patience at least once, because this fight lasts a while. What I'm doing here is, because there's a bit of downtime, I'm double checking that I've got all the passives I need. So at this point, if you've already picked up the reward from Tasuni in Act 4, you should have 6 passive points, because we are helping Alira in this game, in this kind of run. There will be 2 more passive points that I will get from Act 5 for the miasmeter and for what is that zone called? In Act 5. Forgot what that zone is called. Where you're finding 3 items. Anyway, so
Scour.
Act 4 is almost over. There's just a few small boss fights left. In this fight, it's typically best to stand in the red circle, so that you are not slowed down or you deal less damage. Perhaps it's a bit more dangerous, but make sure to dodge the red balls that the Redry is throwing at you. They do a lot of damage. It's very important to dodge them. As far as experience, my goal is to hit at least level 33. Before Malachi, I'm already 33 and a half almost, so I'm perfectly fine as far as the level 34 finish goes.
Must have
Leather
time.
belt.
You are imprisoned by your own vanity, Chevron.
Just one more mini boss and then time for Malachi. So as with all boss fights, you are putting down 3 cremations, Armageddon brands, and 1 or 2 maybe flame wall. You curse the boss, you spam
Your God-given
Wave of
talents,
Conviction so that it deals damage while cremation is already doing damage, and Wave of Conviction is also applying exposure, fire exposure to be specific. As you will notice, some of my items are white. That's perfectly fine. The main purpose of gloves, helmet and body armor is to provide you with links. The build doesn't need extra life on every piece. Basically all phases of Malachi should end immediately if you are using your abilities correctly. Make sure to dodge the traps on the ground as well as the red balls. I'm maybe taking a bit more damage than I should be, but I am fine. Any currency that I have at this point, I'm happy to spend on the gear I have, because it's just an F5 Kitava run. As soon as I know I've already dealt enough damage, I am repositioning my cremations. I want to make sure that the next phase ends as quickly as the previous one did.
Rare boon.
Normally I would pick up rare boots, but it's so late into the run, I wouldn't benefit from them much anyway, and I already have a pair of boots with 14 movement speed. One more act to go. This one goes very quickly, even if you're doing both optional skill point quests. Be careful around the monsters that flicker strike. They can be quite deadly. It's exactly those monsters that I was talking about. They are potentially some of the scariest monsters in Act 5. Notice that Armageddon Brand and Cremation are just about ready to level up, but I do need to hit level 34 before they can actually level up. That's why it's important to hit at least level 34 before you finish this act, which I am about to do. And then my DPS, which is already very high, is going to go even higher. So again, Desecrate to spawn corpses, few cremations, Flame Wall, Armageddon Brand. In this case you don't even need them. Boss basically dies immediately. I think at this point I was quite confused what passive points I'm supposed to be picking up. I think I will go for some extra life, we'll see. So here you need to get the Miasmeter if you're going for a run with all skill points. That barely takes any time.
Piety's science may aid in uncovering the truth of this world. God does have a sense of humor.
For the final fight in this zone, try to stay away from the pack of magic monsters that's typically here. They can do quite a lot of damage to you, especially if you get hit by them and the boss at the same time. It could be dangerous, but as long as you stay away from them, you should be fine. The boss will, just like all the other bosses in Act 4 and 5, will die quickly just because of how powerful the cremation is. At the end of the run, I'm choosing to pick up some weak damage nodes. We're talking like 10% elemental damage or 8% fire damage and some AoE. If this was a run where I'm progressing onto Act 6, I would be pathing to pick up some more impressive nodes, but because I'm basically ending the run in 10 minutes, I'm happy to pick up slightly less efficient nodes that don't involve any traveling on the tree. A more reasonable racer will probably have taken that waypoint. You're right on top of it, but I don't want to waste any time at all. And I'm pretty comfortable and confident that I won't die. But yeah, pick up that waypoint. It's silly not to. If you're right on top of a waypoint, it's better to pick it up, especially if your PoE or your computer ever crashes, you have problems with your internet. Many racers have lost races because of such problems, so picking up some waypoints like this one is recommended, but I am very focused on min-maxing, let's put it this way, or just stupid if you like to look at it from a different angle.
Portal.
In a run that progresses onto Act 6, typically you will have to do an extra run through Chamber of Innocence. It's the most efficient way to get experience in Acts 4 and 5, basically. So if you do want to do an extra Chamber of Innocence run, make sure to pick up the waypoint. And make sure to
Must have time to gather my will.
kill as many magic packs as you can along the way. I don't need that in this case. I'm already level 34, I've got all the experience I need. As far as this boss fight, it's basically like all the other ones. Put down cremations, flame wall, Armageddon brand, curse the boss, and spam wave of conviction. There's always 10 waves at this point after every phase. If you want, you can choose to count them. I don't even do that. I just make sure that I constantly refresh the cremations and maybe some flame walls on the boss to make sure that when the boss is targetable, he dies immediately. It's perhaps a lazy approach, but if you make sure that the cremations are refreshed, you're not going to be wasting any time at all. It's very important to dodge that beam. You cannot stand in it for more than a second, even if you have good firers. What I've found is that if you are DPSing efficiently, the fire bullet hell basically never happens. It only really happens at the end of the fight sometimes, but at that point I'm already on my way out of the room. So with good enough damage, the most dangerous ability is skipped. It never happens, basically. I would recommend that you always have at least one portal available, like one portal in your inventory in Act 5 if you are ever having any issues. For example, with mana, you can portal to town and refresh your mana
Rare
flasks.
boots.
What in damnation have you done?
All that's left in Act 5 is the one skill point quest and then Kitava.
What in damnation have I done?
And as you will see, Kitava is no challenge to a build using cremation. Be careful around this area. The monsters do quite a lot of damage. I think it's typically physical damage, so you can't mitigate that with resistances. There's not a lot of different ways to mitigate physical damage in a race in the first few acts. That's one reason why I like to use Steelskin as a very cheap, convenient layer of defense. If you prefer, you could put Steelskin on a different key so that's not on the left mouse button and use it at very specific times. I'm not a big fan of this approach because I find that most of the dangerous
I shall cleanse this place of
things in
hallowed
races that actually kill you, they happen unexpectedly and you don't have the chance to really see them coming. So this approach wouldn't help in most of those situations, but if you are a god gamer and you know exactly when to use that steel skin, that's not a bad thing to do at all.
I continue to serve as gods in.
The Reliquary, the final skill point quest, you just need to find 3 items here, and after you've done that, you can pick up the skill point for Miasmeter and for the Reliquary quest and be on your way to Kitava. Just as a little benchmark, I like to have it at the very least 700 health when entering the ascent, just to make it much less likely that I die to the Flicker Strikers. it seems to make a big difference whether you have 650 health or 700. I found that it really
Remember.
changes things in the ascent. So all we have left is Kitava, and I have 8 passive skill points. All the available passive skills you get from quests in the first 5 acts, except for the bandits, which I am choosing not to kill them all. Alira makes things much easier in terms of resistances. That's the main reason why we help her.
There is always
If you
hope.
choose to progress
There
to
is
Act
always redemption.
6,
Even when all looks
again, Alira
lost.
is even better in that situation because of the experience penalty.
Scour.
I would probably recommend that you
Charm.
finish the Purity of Flesh wheel earlier on. In this run, I think I'm only going to finish it off right now.
Come forth, ravenous one.
Maybe not even
Face the
now,
wrath of
but
God.
it's typically recommended to get the entire life wheel before Belly of the Beast,
Must have time. to
especially
gather
if you are a little bit less experienced at racing or quickly leveling. I think I was quite confused at this point which nose I'm supposed to be picking up. I'm quite adverse to picking up a lot of life in a race. It always feels wrong. So make sure you do the 3 cremation pre-mine, as I like to refer to it. Put some flame walls. With the unique monsters, if possible, try to curse the unique monster and position yourself so that you can use Wave of Conviction at both the unique monster and the heart to DPS both of them at once. But it's not too important as the phases end so quickly. So again, I am trying to attack both the unique monster and the heart at the same time, and if I notice that the cremations are expiring on the heart, I'm making sure to refresh them. The run ends here. Racers in an Act 5 Kitava race, racers stop the timer when the resistance penalty message happens. So as you can see, it's a deathless run. All passives. This is level 34, 35 I believe. And it's 1 hour and 24. So just to show you the passive tree, this is the passive tree I would recommend for every run of this kind. Again, if you were to progress on to Act 6, you wouldn't pick up this 10 spell damage or 10 elemental damage nose. You would instead go either for nose to the left of Purity of Flesh, or you would go for nose to the right of Elemental Overload. Alright, so the run is over. If you have any questions or anything is unclear about this guide, feel free to ask in the comments. I'm showing off my gear here. So, Arcane Search setup, Anger, Desecrate, so that's the Arrogant and Brand 3-link with Onslaught and Combustion. That's Leap Slam with faster attacks, and I think there's some utility in there as well. That's Wave of Conviction, yep. And that's the Cremation 3-link, which is Elemental Focus and Concentrated Effect. This build is strong enough that even if you're only working with a 2-link Cremation, the final boss fights will look basically the same, at least if you have proper Scepter recipes. You might have noticed I wasn't looking for 4-links at all. You just don't need them. The build does so much damage. Even if you make some small mistakes with gearing, like I did potentially with the Scepter recipes, even if you don't get 3-links or 4-links, you can still go through the first 5 acts extremely quickly. And that's the steel skin which I have on left click. One thing I probably forgot to mention is that I don't do the Den quest in Act 2. I think it's quite optional. Because you are leap slamming most of the run, it's entirely up to you whether you want to do the Den quest to get that extra Quicksilver or not. I think either way is fine. Just to show you, this is the the guide. Basically, all the information you need is in the guide. It's quite long, but if you want to master leveling, that's kind of what it takes. But there's also a much shorter version which you can use on, for example, on your second monitor while doing a run. So anyway, that's basically all I wanted to say about this build. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. And thank you for watching. Bye.